All right, everyone, and welcome to part two of our series on how we can get the post office profitable. First part, if you haven't watched it yet, go find the link in the description. It's there where we go over the cost structure and how that's going to be the biggest cost savings that we can actually implement for the post office. And then the second video, I was trying to think of other creative cost measures that we may have to help with some of our external costs that aren't tied to actual labor and our workforce and then everything that comes with that when you have government positions. And as I was digging deeper and deeper into this, I realized how challenging it really is to find other areas where we could actually implement some cost savings. One part of it is we don't really have a great idea of what the post office does now in terms of their efficiency. They have some pretty strict barriers that they have to go up against, mainly in that they have to deliver to every single address in the United States 6 days a week. What information we do have about their routing system is hazy at best. And I think it's probably just a safe assumption that they've optimized almost as much as they can. And any optimization they did take from software implementations or new machinery and tools would come would basically just be offset by the individuals they have working in the post office right now. Because if you remember, they have a workforce that's almost 20% higher than UPS and FedEx. And without more information on that, it's a difficult case study to just go and say, hey, if we buy this software, if we invest in these tools that cost millions of dollars, we'll save X, Y, Z. That's probably true, but without more information, I don't want to really dive into that. And before we continue on with the video, I just want to take a quick second to talk about SupplyQ, which is the software I just launched to help small businesses really gain control of understanding their inventory and their supply chain to ensure they never stock out and you're not ordering too much of the supplies you need. Everything's set up in a quite an easy to use manner. It gives you key actionable details about all your raw materials, when you need to reorder, when you're going to run out, and gives you control and power over your forecast. And even better, Claude or AI, I'm using Claude to will literally help you forecast, give you key crucial insights to all your information that deals just with your own business. So you're not copying and pasting things into a chatbot to figure everything out. Everything's right there for the AI to analyze and help you make the best decisions for your business. If you're interested in what SupplyQ might have to offer for your small business, leave a comment below and I'd be glad to get in touch with you. Now back to the video. So this second section, I just wanted to kind of go through an example of something that seems like on the surface that it might actually go and save them money. In reality, it really does not, and it will take a much more intricate and closer look in actually getting cost savings. And then, of course, what I'm talking about is electric vehicles and revamping the post office's entire fleet into electric, which is the goal of a lot of states right now. It's being pushed hard, electric vehicles, and frankly, rightfully so. I think that's obviously seems like it's coming down the line, but this feels more like a 20 to 30 year, even 50-year project rather than something we can do in the next 5 years. So it's probably a much more measured approach that we need, and if anything, we should be a lot more conservative in the post office's electric vehicle rollout and ensure that we're not just ballooning the costs out of control. So let's get level set on just some key assumptions that we need to work with regards to the post office. So right now the current size of just the vehicle fleet is around 235,000 vehicles, all varying in different ages. A lot of these vehicles are quite old, but regardless, that's quite a few post office trucks that are on the car, that are on the roads today. And I went with an assumptions like, let's say what happens if we try to replace 10% of those vehicles every single year. So if we did that, that's you're getting 23,500 new vehicles each year. Would obviously would take 10 years to replace everything. And the kicker is how much do these vehicles actually cost? It's quite difficult to come up with that. I saw some figures online that it would cost anywhere from $65,000 to $80,000. You think of a Tesla Model 3 that costs maybe in the mid 30s right now. Even then, the cost, and that's a different vehicle, probably a lot easier to make than a post office vehicle that needs to be bigger, needs to be able to carry more weight, etc. And of course, there's no company that is able to produce 23,000 vehicles for the post office. So right off the bat, it's incredibly difficult to get such a supply chain down to costs that you'll see we need to make this profitable. We'll get to that later in a second, but I'm just starting with 75,000 per vehicle as our starting point, since that's some data I did see. And then if we go back and look at the 10K of the post office, their financial statements, um, just some important costs to look at. So total highway costs are going down, and I think that does have something to do with route optimization. Cost of fuel was lower in 2024 than it was in 2023, so that does help to save $500 million. And you can also see just highway cost to air cost. Highway cost is about 75% of that total cost structure on the vehicles that are used to um, actually move mail all across the country. And some vehicle maintenance and fuel costs. You can see here we have uh, vehicle maintenance is nearly as expensive as the fuel we need to power these vehicles. But even so, we went from 1.4 billion in 2024 savings year over year of almost $200 million. So everything all said and done, like in some way, shape, or form, they are improving on these cost measures. But the goal of this is to see how close we can get these numbers down to zero. And even so, 1.4 billion in savings is a lot, but there's not so much room to like shrink that lower, as opposed to when we're talking about headcount, where we have like a $55 billion number we can shrink. A lot less shrinkage when we're talking here with the main costs we can use to get vehicle costs lower. And if we just take this down to a per vehicle basis, each vehicle about $3,000 on maintenance and fuel per year, and then I have a little inflation rate that I built into this, and just some assumptions I'm saving. I don't know if these are right, but energy savings with EVs, let's say about 80% from a standard diesel vehicle, and then the maintenance savings I'm calling about 75%. These are probably a little bit high, even at these numbers, and that just even paints a less rosy picture of trying to move the entire vehicle fleet electric purely from a cost standpoint. So let's just start plugging some numbers in, get an amortization schedule going in to to basically figure out how this is going to work out. So infrastructure and vehicle spending. So if we do, let's pop this over here. So 23,500 vehicles times $75,000 to build a vehicle. So we're going to be spending almost $2 billion right off the bat to get these new vehicles on the road. And even if we amortize that throughout the 10-year life cycle of this project, that's $176 million we're adding on to the income statement as a cost that we already have to overcome to be profitable just on this project alone. And of course, even with gas vehicles being taken off the road, we still need to calculate, okay, so we still have, let's do this, fuel savings. So we have our ratio of gas vehicles to EVs is going to be something like this, 23,500 to 211,000. So we're still paying a bunch in gas, but we still do have some fuel savings and maintenance savings for these new vehicles, which is, it's nice. It's nice savings. 57 million on fuel for these 23,000 vehicles, and almost the same on maintenance. But then when we compare that to the amortization of these two of all these new vehicles going on the road, we don't really get any savings, right? We have a $176 million bill against $109 million in savings, which already puts us in the hole of $66 million. And the picture doesn't really get that much better as we go along. And I'll show you exactly how that is. So let's just show that what happens in year two here. So year two, amortization. So EVs go down. My assumption that costs improve 10% year over year, which seems reasonable with scale, and then we're devoting more resources across the economy to building more EVs. That seems like a decent estimate just for the purposes of this exercise. But then we have new amortization that we have to deal with. So we're paying $176 million for that first $1.7 billion infrastructure spend. But then on top of that, we have to add $1.5 billion in. So basically, we're adding these two numbers together for our new amortization bill, which is quite substantial. So 334 million is going to be spent on amortization. Obviously, more gas vehicles are going to be off the road, replaced by EVs, and fuel savings and maintenance spend are also going to be more. But is that going to offset that gigantic amortization costs? And you'll see the answer is probably not. See, and just our total savings. Honestly, we should be calling this total bill rather than savings. Just continues to balloon. 115 million lost just in the second year alone, and then if we just continue this out, it just continues to spiral out of control. So that 1.4 billion in savings doesn't really, excuse me, that trying to get this 1.4 billion in savings for fuel and vehicles does not offset the, what is that? That's the $11 billion we have to spend to electrify the post office fleet. And then we don't really start seeing our amortization go down until year 5 or 6, where the cost structure is a lot more favorable for us to get there. And you can see by year 10 is when we are down to 53 million bucks of total bill. But throughout that entire process, we're losing 1.2 billion dollars, which not the best way to start gaining profitability. And then even if we change this cost per vehicle, let's just change it to, like, let's say it's 50,000 bucks for everything. Even so, we lose money in our second. We still losing money our first couple of years, and then we really do see the savings. But even at 50K, costs per year-over-year improvement really probably wouldn't be 10%. It'd probably be something like closer to 0.05%. And then even so, like, I don't think that's realistic, just given some of the data I've seen of how much it costs per vehicle build. And then to actually get profitable in year 1, we would probably have to get a vehicle of $45,000 for total costs. And then you can see our savings are right there from year 1. And then there we go. We're saving $1 billion if the cost structure really is 45K per vehicle right at the start. Highly unrealistic, I think. And then even so, that also takes into account that these are probably rosy estimations of what energy and maintenance would be saving with these vehicles. So sadly, we didn't really find a way to get cost savings with EVs here. I think the post office does need to take some sort of measure for EV planning, because if you want to think long term in the next 20, 30 years, this will eventually be profitable for them. They just probably need to slow roll this out a little quicker than a 10-year horizon to get to the numbers they want to do, which still leaves us with a lot of work to do to figure out what we can do to close like a $6 billion gap. We've got about 2 to 3 billion from employee savings and managing headcount. But at the end of the day, that leaves us the other side of the P&L statement, looking at revenue to figure out what we can do on the revenue side to get creative with a company that technically is large enough to be a Fortune 50 company, and maybe some clever structures and ideas we have to increase the post office's revenue. But until that time, come take a look at our new video that's going to be dropping for part 3 to figure out what we do on the revenue side. Thanks for watching.